The night was quiet at the Velant medical station. Dr. Kathira sat at her desk and watched the snow fall outside the window. She had worked at this clinic for 40 years. She had treated patients from dozens of different alien species. She had seen injuries that would make most people sick. But nothing in her long career had prepared her for what walked through the door that night. The airlock made a hissing sound as it opened. Cold air rushed into the warm clinic. Nurse Talvex looked up from his paperwork. His antennae twitched with surprise. A figure stood in the doorway. It was a human female. She had dark hair that was wet with blood. Dust covered her mining uniform. Her left arm hung at a strange angle that made no sense. It looked broken in several places, but she was walking. She was actually walking on her own 2 feet. The human moved slowly toward the intake desk. Each step seemed to cost her great effort. Her breathing was loud and wet. It sounded like there was liquid in her lungs. Her face was very pale, almost gray, but her eyes were clear and focused. She looked at Nurse Talvex and gave him a small smile. "Evening," she said. Her voice was tight with pain, but she spoke clearly. "Had a bit of an accident at the mining rig. Think I might need some patching up." Nurse Talvex stared at her. His antennae trembled so hard they made a buzzing sound. He had never seen anything like this. The human looked like she had been crushed by a building. Yet she stood there and talked to him, like she had come in with a small cut. He grabbed his medical scanner with shaking hands. He pointed it at the human and pressed the button. The device hummed as it checked her body. When the results appeared on the screen, Nurse Talvex made a high-pitched sound of distress. It was so loud that it echoed through the whole clinic. Dr. Kathira jumped up from her chair. She ran to the intake area. When she saw the human standing there, she felt her secondary heart stop beating for a moment. She grabbed the scanner from Nurse Talvex and read the results. 17 bone fractures, 3 cracked ribs, a punctured lung, internal bleeding in multiple places, massive tissue damage. The scanner said the injuries were consistent with a major structural collapse. A building or a machine had fallen on this woman. Dr. Kathira read the numbers again. Then she read them a third time. They did not change. This human had injuries that should have killed her instantly. At the very least, she should be unconscious on the ground. The pain alone should have shut down her brain to protect her from suffering. But she was standing. She was talking. She was waiting patiently for someone to help her. "Is it bad?" the human asked. She had noticed the frozen looks on their faces. The beam came down pretty fast. Barely got clear in time. Dr. Kathira could not find words to speak. She had treated Velant soldiers who had died from injuries half as bad as this. She had watched Kreth warriors fall into shock from a single broken bone. Every species she knew would have collapsed long before reaching the clinic with damage like this. "How did you get here?" Dr. Kathira finally managed to ask. The human pointed over her shoulder with her good arm. "Walked," she said simply. The rig's communication system went down in the collapse. Someone had to come get help. "You walked," Dr. Kathira repeated. The words did not make sense to her. "Yeah, took a while. Maybe an hour? Hard to say. I had to go slow because of the snow." Dr. Kathira checked the station records later. The mining rig was 3 kilometers away. This woman had walked 3 kilometers through deep snow with 17 broken bones and a punctured lung. She had done it in the dark, in freezing temperatures, while bleeding internally. "Get her to the emergency room immediately," Dr. Kathira ordered. Her voice was sharp with urgency. "Prepare for emergency surgery. Call everyone on the night shift. Wake up the day shift too. We need all hands." Nurse Talvex tried to bring a hover stretcher for the human, but she shook her head. "I can walk," she said. "Just show me where to go. Please, Dr. Kathira said. You must lie down. You are badly hurt. The human looked at her with an expression that was hard to read. I know, she said. I can feel it. But I've made it this far. I can make it a little farther. She walked to the emergency room on her own feet. The medical staff watched her pass with wide eyes and open mouths. A young intern started crying. An old nurse who had seen hundreds of terrible injuries made a religious gesture from her home world. They all knew what they were seeing. They were seeing something impossible. The human climbed onto the operating table by herself. Only when she lay down did some of the tension leave her body. She let out a long breath that turned into a wet cough. Blood appeared on her lips. Okay, she said. I think I can rest now. Dr. Kathira rushed to her side. What is your name? She asked. Sarah, the human said. Sarah Chun, engineer, 2nd class. Mining rig 7. Her eyes started to close. My crew is still at the rig. They're safe in the emergency bunker. But they need help. Please send someone. We will, Dr. Kathira promised. We will send help right away. Sarah nodded. A small smile crossed her bloody lips. Good, she whispered. That's good. Then she finally let herself fall unconscious. Dr. Kathira stood over her patient and felt something she had never felt before in her medical career. It was not just surprise or confusion. It was fear. Deep primal fear. She had always thought humans were strange creatures. They were soft and fragile compared to most species. They had no claws, no armor, no venom. They broke easily and healed slowly. The galaxy considered them weak, but Dr. Kathira understood now that the galaxy was wrong. Humans were not weak at all. They were something far more terrifying. They were creatures that refused to stop. Creatures that kept going when any sane being would have given up and died. As she prepared for the most difficult surgery of her life, Dr. Kathira wondered what else she did not know about humans. What other impossible things could they do? She was about to find out. The operating room was full of people. Dr. Kathira had called in every surgeon and nurse she could find. They gathered around the table where Sarah Chun lay unconscious. The bright lights above them showed every terrible detail of her injuries. Dr. Kathira had performed thousands of surgeries in her career. She had saved lives that others said could not be saved. But as she looked at the human on her table, she felt uncertain for the first time in many years. This patient should already be dead. The fact that she was still alive broke every rule of medicine that Dr. Kathira knew. Begin the full body scan, she ordered. I want to see exactly what we are dealing with. The scanning machine hummed as it passed over Sarah's body. Images appeared on the large screen on the wall. The room fell completely silent as the medical team saw what was inside their patient. Her left arm had 4 separate fractures. The bones were broken so badly that they had shifted out of place. Her right leg had 3 fractures. Her pelvis was cracked in 2 places. 8 of her ribs were damaged. 3 were fully broken, and the rest had deep cracks. One of the broken ribs had punctured her left lung. Air and blood were leaking into her chest cavity. There was more. Her collarbone was snapped in half. 2 vertebrae in her spine had hairline fractures. Her skull had a small crack above her left ear. Internal bleeding was happening in 3 different places. Medical intern Yevith made a choking sound. His face had turned green, which meant he was about to be sick. Nurse Talvex guided him out of the room before he could collapse. Her pain receptors, Dr. Mulvith said. He was the second most senior doctor in the room. His scales had turned pale gray with shock. Check her pain receptors. Dr. Kathira already knew what she would find, but she ran the test anyway. The results made her stomach twist with horror. They are fully active, she announced. There is no neurological dampening, no shock-induced numbness. She walked here while feeling the complete pain of all these injuries. Dr. Malvis shook his head slowly. That is not possible. The body protects itself from extreme pain. Every species we know has an automatic shutdown system. When pain becomes too much, the mind turns off to prevent damage. It is basic biology. Human biology does not work that way. A new voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned to look. A tall human male stood there. He wore the same type of mining uniform as Sarah, but his was clean and undamaged. His face was tired and worried, but he did not look surprised by what he was seeing. "Sorry to come in without permission," the man said. "I heard Sarah made it to the clinic. I'm Marcus Webb, safety officer for the mining operation. Is she going to be okay?" Dr. Kathira found it hard to answer that question. "She should be dead," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. "I do not understand how she is still alive." Marcus Webb nodded slowly. There was sadness in his eyes, but also something else. Pride, perhaps. Or acceptance. "Yeah," he said quietly. "We get that a lot." He stepped into the room and looked at Sarah's broken body on the table. His jaw tightened, but he did not look away. "Can I tell you something about humans?" he asked. "It might help you understand what you are seeing." Dr. Kathira nodded. She needed to understand. She needed to know how this was possible. Marcus took a deep breath. "Humans evolved on a death world," he began. "Our home planet Earth is one of the most dangerous places in the known galaxy. The gravity is high. The predators are everywhere. Diseases mutate constantly. The weather can kill you in dozens of different ways. Everything on Earth is trying to kill you all the time." He paused and looked around the room at all the alien faces watching him. Most species survive by being faster than danger, or stronger than danger, or having armor or venom or the ability to fly away. Humans had none of those things. We are slow. We are weak. We have soft skin and no claws. By all logic, we should have gone extinct millions of years ago. Then how did you survive? Nurse Talvex asked. "We survived by refusing to die," Marcus said simply. "We evolved to keep going no matter what. Our ancestors did not catch food by being fast. They caught food by following it until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could walk and run for days without stopping. They could track an animal for weeks until it simply gave up and died." He pointed at Sarah. "That is what you are seeing here. That is what humans are. We are not tough because we do not feel pain. We feel all of it." Every single nerve in her body was screaming at her to stop, to lie down, to give up. But she did not. She kept walking because someone needed to get help. Dr. Kathira looked at her patient with new eyes. Her body did not protect her from the pain? No, human bodies do not do that. We have something called adrenaline. It is a chemical that floods our system when we are in danger. It does not remove pain. It just helps us ignore it. It lets us push through damage that would stop any other creature. For how long? Marcus shrugged. As long as we need to. I have seen humans fight with missing limbs. I have seen humans walk across deserts with no water for days. I have seen humans survive things that no creature should survive. We just do not stop. The room was very quiet. Every alien in the room was thinking about what this meant. Humans were everywhere in the galaxy now. They worked on space stations and mining rigs. They served on starships and diplomatic missions. Everyone had thought they were fragile creatures that needed protection. Everyone had been wrong. "We should begin the surgery," Dr. Kathira said finally. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking slightly. "We have a lot of work to do." Marcus nodded. "Thank you for helping her. I will wait outside." As he turned to leave, Dr. Kathira called out to him. "Mr. Webb?" One more question. He stopped and looked back. Sarah's injuries suggest she was crushed by a falling beam. A beam that size would weigh hundreds of kilograms. How did she get free? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that would haunt Dr. Kathira for the rest of her life. She lifted it off herself, he said. The rescue team found the beam moved to the side. She pushed it away and crawled out from under it. Then she walked to you. He left the room. The doctor stood in stunned silence. Dr. Kathira picked up her surgical tools and began the long work of putting Sarah Chun back together. As she worked, she kept thinking about what Marcus had said. Humans did not stop. They did not give up. They did not accept death, even when death had already won. For the first time in her life, Dr. Kathira understood why some species in the galaxy feared humans so much. It was not because humans were aggressive or violent. It was because humans were impossible to stop. You could break them. You could hurt them. You could do everything in your power to kill them, and they would just keep coming. Sarah Chun opened her eyes 3 days after her surgery. The first thing she saw was a white ceiling with soft lights. The second thing she saw was Dr. Kathira standing beside her bed with a look of amazement on her alien face. "You are awake," the doctor said. Her voice was soft with wonder. "I did not expect you to wake so soon." Sarah tried to move, but her body felt heavy and stiff. Bandages covered most of her skin. Metal braces held her arm and leg in place. Tubes connected her to machines that beeped quietly. "How long?" Sarah asked. Her throat was dry and her voice came out rough. 3 days. We kept you sedated while your body began to heal." Dr. Kathira checked the readings on the machines beside the bed. The surgery took 14 hours. We had to repair damage to almost every part of your body. It was the most difficult operation I have ever performed. Sarah nodded slowly. She remembered walking through the snow. She remembered the pain. She remembered reaching the clinic and seeing the shocked faces of the medical staff. After that, everything was blank. "My crew?" she asked. "Did you send help to the rig?" "Yes. A rescue team reached them within 2 hours of your arrival. Everyone is safe." The emergency bunker protected them from the cold. Relief flooded through Sarah's chest. She closed her eyes and let out a long breath. "Good. That's all that matters." Dr. Kathira was quiet for a moment. When Sarah opened her eyes again, the doctor was looking at her with an expression that was hard to understand. "Miss Chun," Dr. Kathira said slowly, "do you understand what you did?" "I walked to the clinic," Sarah said. She did not see why this was strange. The comms were down. Someone had to get help. You walked 3 kilometers with 17 fractured bones. You had a punctured lung. You were bleeding inside your body. You had injuries that would kill most species instantly. Dr. Kathira leaned closer. You should not have been able to walk at all. You should not have been able to stand. You should have died within minutes of the accident. Sarah thought about this. She remembered the moment when the beam fell. She remembered the crushing weight and the terrible sound of her bones breaking. She remembered lying in the darkness and knowing that she was badly hurt. She also remembered thinking about her crew. They were trapped in the bunker with no way to call for help. If she did not do something, they might freeze to death before anyone found them. "I had to," Sarah said simply. There was no other choice. Dr. Kathira shook her head. "There is always another choice. You could have stayed where you were. You could have waited for someone to find you. And let my crew die? No, that was not a choice I could make." Over the next few days, Sarah discovered that she had become famous. The Velenth Medical Station served a sector of space with 12 inhabited worlds and 47 different species. News of the walking wounded human had spread through medical channels first. Then it spread to news channels. Soon everyone in the sector knew her story. Doctors came from other worlds to see her. They asked questions and took scans of her healing bones. They could not believe that she was recovering so quickly. Human bones were supposed to heal slowly, but Sarah's fractures were already starting to mend after just 1 week. A young Valent's child was in the bed next to Sarah. She had broken her arm in an accident with a hover vehicle. Her name was Telly, and she watched Sarah with big, curious eyes. "Does it hurt?" Telly asked one evening. Her voice was small and shy. Sarah thought about the question carefully. "Yes," she admitted. "It hurts a lot. Even with the medicine, I can feel it. Every time I move, every time I breathe too deep, I feel where my bones are broken." "Then why did you walk? Why didn't you just lie down and wait?" Sarah turned her head to look at the child. Telly's arm was in a simple cast. Compared to Sarah's injuries, it was nothing. But to this little girl, it was probably the worst pain she had ever felt. "Can I tell you a secret?" Sarah asked. Telly nodded eagerly. "Being scared and being hurt, those are just feelings. They are like warning lights on a machine. They tell you that something is wrong, but they do not get to decide what you do. You decide that. Your feelings give you information, but you give the orders." Telly thought about this with the serious expression that only children can make. "So you told the pain to be quiet?" Sarah smiled. "Something like that. The pain was yelling at me to stop. But I had something more important to do. So I said thank you for the warning, and I kept walking." Dr. Kathira had been listening from the doorway. She stepped into the room with a datapad in her hands. "Miss Chun, I have been writing a medical paper about your case," she said. "It will be published in journals across 300 worlds. I would like to include what you just said about pain and fear being information. I think it might help other doctors understand your species better." Sarah shrugged with her good shoulder. "Sure, if it helps, it will help more than you know." Dr. Kathira sat down in the chair beside Sarah's bed. "For centuries, other species have thought of humans as fragile. You have soft skin. You break easily. You have short lives compared to many of us. We thought you were weak creatures who survived only because of your technology. And now? Now I understand that we were completely wrong." Dr. Kathira's voice was heavy with emotion. "You are not weak at all. You are something far more dangerous than strong. You are persistent. You are stubborn. You refuse to accept limits that any other species would accept without question." Sarah thought about her grandfather. He had been a fisherman on Earth. He had once sailed a damaged boat through a terrible storm for 3 days to get back to his family. He had not eaten or slept the whole time. When people called him brave, he had just shrugged and said he did what needed to be done. "It's not special," Sarah said. "Not for humans. We all do this. We have a saying on Earth, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. It just means that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you get back up. You keep going. You do not quit." Dr. Kathira was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I have practiced medicine for 40 years. I have seen creatures from dozens of species face death. I have seen them fight, and I have seen them give up. Until now, I thought I understood the limits of what a body could do." She looked at Sarah with something like awe in her eyes. "You have shown me that I understood nothing at all." In the bed beside them, little Telly had fallen asleep. Her broken arm rested on a pillow. She looked peaceful and safe. Sarah looked at the sleeping child and felt tired in a way that had nothing to do with her injuries. She had done what needed to be done. Her crew was safe. Now she could finally rest. "Doctor?" Sarah said quietly. "Yes?" "Thank you for putting me back together. I know it wasn't easy. Dr. Kathira made a sound that might have been a laugh. No, it was not. But you made it possible by surviving long enough to reach us. That was the hard part. Sarah closed her eyes. Outside the window, snow was falling gently on the alien world. Somewhere out there, her crew was waiting for her to recover. There was work to do, machines to fix, problems to solve. But that could wait. For now, she would sleep. She had earned it. The Galactic Council met in a great hall at the center of the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in a huge circle. They discussed trade and treaties. They argued about borders and resources. They made decisions that affected trillions of lives. Today, they were discussing humans. Ambassador Krethlon of the Velenth Confederacy stood at the central podium. He was old and experienced. He had served in politics for most of his long life. But the report in his hands made him feel like a frightened child. "My fellow representatives," he began, "I have received a medical paper from one of our colony worlds. It describes an incident involving a human female who suffered catastrophic injuries in a mining accident. I believe this information is vital for all of us to understand." He pressed a button on his podium. Images appeared on the large screens around the room. They showed Sarah Chen's injuries in clinical detail. They showed the distance she had walked. They showed the timeline of her recovery. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Several representatives made sounds of disbelief. 17 fractures, Ambassador Krethlon continued. A punctured lung. Internal bleeding. Injuries that would kill a Velenth in minutes. Kill a Kreth in seconds. Yet this human walked for an hour through freezing conditions to reach medical help. She was conscious and speaking when she arrived. She asked about her colleagues before she asked about herself. He let that sink in for a moment. And she is recovering. After only 6 weeks, she's expected to make a full return to work. Her bones are healing. Her lung has repaired itself. There will be no permanent damage. A Molluth representative raised one of its many arms. This must be an unusual case. An exception. Surely not all humans are capable of such things. Ambassador Krethlon shook his head slowly. That is what I thought as well. So I ordered a full investigation. I had my staff review every medical record, every incident report, every historical document involving human injuries that we could find. He pressed another button. More data appeared on the screens. Humans have run marathons on broken legs. They have performed surgery on themselves in emergency situations. They have survived falls that should have killed them. They have kept fighting in battles after losing limbs. They have walked across deserts without water. They have survived being frozen, burned, poisoned, and crushed. The hall was completely silent now. During what humans call World War II, a human soldier continued fighting after being shot multiple times. He refused medical treatment until the battle was over. He survived and lived for many more decades. Ambassador Krethlon's voice grew heavier. In their early space exploration, a human astronaut completed a mission after a piece of equipment exploded and removed oxygen from his spacecraft. He had to solve complex problems while slowly suffocating. He succeeded and returned home safely. He looked around the room at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. These are not unusual cases. These are normal cases. This is what humans do. This is what humans are. The Trilith ambassador spoke up. Her voice echoed strangely in the large hall. We have known humans were dangerous for many years. That is why we have so many rules about their military vessels. That is why we monitor them so carefully. What does this medical report change? Ambassador Krethlon took a deep breath before answering. We have been thinking about human danger in the wrong way, he said. We thought they were dangerous because of their technology, their weapons, their aggression, their ability to reproduce quickly. We thought if we controlled those things, we could manage the threat they pose. He paused. We were wrong. The danger is not in what humans do. The danger is in what humans are. They are biologically designed to never give up. Their bodies contain chemical systems that allow them to ignore damage that would destroy any other species. Their minds are structured to keep functioning under conditions that would drive others insane. A younger representative from a species Ambassador Krethlon did not recognize stood up. What are you saying, Ambassador? That we should fear humans? That we should treat them as enemies? No. Ambassador Krethlon shook his head firmly. That is the last thing we should do. Making enemies of humans would be the worst mistake in galactic history. I am saying we need to understand them. Really understand them. Because right now, humans live among us on thousands of worlds. They work beside us. They trade with us. They form friendships and families with our people. He lowered his voice, but the microphones carried his words to every corner of the hall. What happens when there is a conflict? What happens when human interests clash with ours? We have always assumed that humans would back down eventually, that they would accept defeat when defeat was clear, that they would know when they were beaten. The silence in the hall was absolute. They will not, Ambassador Krethlon said. Humans do not accept defeat. They do not recognize when they are beaten. They will keep fighting long after any rational species would surrender. They will keep pushing long after any logical being would give up. They will drag themselves across the ground with broken bones and dying bodies to reach their goals. He looked down at the report in his hands. Sarah. Chum walked 3 kilometers with 17 fractures because her friends needed help. Imagine what humans would do for their families, for their nations, for their species. Imagine what they would do if they believed their survival was at stake. The Molluth representative spoke again. Then what do you suggest, Ambassador? What should we do with this information? Ambassador Krethlon thought carefully before answering. We need to change how we think about humans. We need to stop treating them like any other species. They are not. They are something new in the galaxy. Something we have never encountered before. He stepped away from the podium and began walking slowly around the room. Most species in this galaxy evolved on worlds where survival meant avoiding danger, running from predators, hiding from threats, finding safety. This made sense. It kept our ancestors alive long enough to reproduce. He stopped and faced the assembly. Humans evolved on a world where safety did not exist. There was no place to hide, no way to run fast enough, no armor thick enough. The only way to survive was to keep going, to never stop, to refuse to die no matter what the universe threw at them. He returned to the podium. That is why I called this meeting. Not to frighten you, not to make you hate or fear humans, but to make you understand something very important. He looked around the room one final time. Humans are our friends. They are our partners. They are our neighbors in this vast galaxy. And that is very, very fortunate for us, because I cannot imagine what it would be like to have them as our enemies. The meeting continued for many hours after that. Representatives asked questions and demanded more information. Plans were made. Policies were reviewed. Reports were ordered. But Ambassador Krethlon knew that the real change would take much longer. Centuries, perhaps. It would take time for the galaxy to truly understand what humans were, and he hoped that when that understanding finally came, it would bring wisdom rather than fear, because fear of humans would be the most dangerous mistake anyone could make. After all, humans did not respond to fear by backing down, they responded by pushing harder. 6 weeks had passed since the night Sarah Chun walked into the Velenth medical station with 17 broken bones. Now she walked back through those same doors, but everything was different. Her bones had healed. Her lung was whole again. The scars on her skin were fading to thin white lines. Dr. Kathira met her in the entrance hall. The doctor looked different too. She stood taller now. Her eyes held a new kind of understanding that had not been there before. "Miss Chun," Dr. Kathira said warmly, "you are right on time for your final checkup." Sarah smiled and shook the doctor's hand carefully. She was still getting used to using her left arm again. The bones had healed perfectly, but the muscles needed more time to remember their strength. "Thanks for seeing me, Doc. I know you've been busy." That was an understatement. Dr. Kathira's medical paper had been published 3 weeks ago. It had spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Doctors and scientists from hundreds of worlds had contacted her. News reporters had called constantly. The little medical station on this frozen mining colony had become famous. "I am never too busy for you," Dr. Kathira said. She led Sarah down the familiar corridor toward the examination rooms. "You are the most important patient I have ever had. Not because of your injuries, but because of what you taught me." Sarah felt uncomfortable with the attention. She had just done what needed to be done. That was all. She did not understand why everyone made such a big deal about it. "I'm just an engineer," Sarah said. "I fix machines. That's my job." Walking to the clinic was not special. Dr. Kathira stopped walking and turned to face her patient. "Miss Chun, I need you to understand something. In my 40 years of medicine, I have watched hundreds of patients die. Good people. Strong people. They died because their bodies gave up. They died because the damage was too much. They died because biology has limits." She reached out and gently touched Sarah's healed arm. "You showed me that those limits are not the same for everyone. You showed me that the mind can push the body far beyond what I thought possible. You changed how I think about medicine, how I think about survival, how I think about life itself." Sarah did not know what to say to that. She had never been good with emotional moments. She preferred problems she could solve with tools and equations. "Let's just do the checkup," she said quietly. The examination took an hour. Dr. Kathira scanned every part of Sarah's body. She checked every bone that had been broken. She listened to both lungs. She tested reflexes and strength and flexibility. When it was done, the doctor sat back with a look of wonder on her face. "Complete recovery," she announced. "No lasting damage. No weakness. No problems at all. Your bones are actually slightly stronger than they were before, because of how they healed." Sarah nodded. She had expected this. Human bones often grew back stronger after they broke. It was one of many strange things about human biology that she had learned to take for granted. "Does that mean I can go back to work?" "Medically, yes. You are cleared for full duty." Dr. Kathira hesitated. "But I want to ask you something before you go. Something that has troubled me since the night you arrived." "Sure. What is it?" Dr. Kathira folded her hands in her lap. "When you walked through that door with 17 fractures and a punctured lung, what were you thinking? What was in your mind during that walk through the snow?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. She had thought about this question herself many times during her recovery. It was hard to explain. "I was thinking about my crew," she said finally. "Marcus and Jin and Tara and the others. They were trapped in the bunker. They had food and heat, but no way to call for help. The communications went down when the beam fell." She looked out the window at the frozen landscape. "I kept thinking about Jin's daughter. She just turned 4 last month. Jin showed me pictures all the time. Cute kid, really cute. And I thought about how Jin needed to get home to see her again. How Tara was supposed to get married next month. How Marcus had promised to teach me to play that card game his grandfather taught him. Her voice grew thick with emotion that she tried to hide. They were counting on me. Not because I was special. Not because I was the strongest or the bravest. Just because I was the one who could still move. The beam missed my spine by a few centimeters. If it had landed differently, I would have been paralyzed. Someone else would have had to walk. Dr. Kath-Ira listened in silence. The human body is like a machine, Sarah continued. Machines break. That's normal. That's expected. But as long as there's power in the system, as long as there's fuel in the tank, you keep the engine running. You keep moving forward. Because somewhere out there, someone is counting on you. She turned back to face the doctor. That's all it was. Nothing heroic. Nothing special. Just an engineer doing her job. My body was breaking down, but the machine still had power. So I kept it running until I reached the destination. Dr. Kath-Ira was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. Thank you, Sarah-chan. Thank you for teaching me what it truly means to survive. I thought I understood biology. I thought I understood the limits of the body. You showed me that the true limits are not in our bodies at all. They are in our minds. And some minds refuse to accept any limits. Sarah stood up and stretched carefully. Her body felt good, strong, ready for work. Thanks for putting me back together, Doc. I mean it. I would have died without you. And my colleagues and I would have never known what was possible without you. Dr. Kath-Ira stood, walked Sarah to the door. The galaxy is watching you now, you know. Watching all humans. Wondering what else you can do. Sarah laughed softly. We're not that impressive. Just stubborn. Too stubborn to know when to quit. That, Dr. Kath-Ira said, is exactly what makes you terrifying. They walked together to the clinic's main exit. Outside, the sun was setting over the colony. The sky was painted in shades of purple and orange. The snow sparkled like scattered diamonds. Sarah's crew was waiting for her. Marcus and Jin and Tara and the others stood in a group near a transport vehicle. When they saw her, they started cheering. Jin ran forward and hugged her carefully, mindful of her recently healed bones. Welcome back, boss, Jin said with tears in his eyes. We missed you. Missed you too, Sarah said. Now let's get back to work. That mining rig isn't going to fix itself. Dr. Kath-Ira watched them climb into the vehicle and drive away toward the rig. She stood in the doorway until they disappeared over a snow-covered hill. Little Telly appeared beside her. The child's arm had healed weeks ago, but she came to visit the clinic often. She had become fascinated by stories of the human who would not stop. Is she really okay? Telly asked. Yes, Dr. Kath-Ira said. She is completely healed. Will she get hurt again? Dr. Kath-Ira thought about this. Humans live dangerous lives. They took risks that other species avoided. They pushed themselves into situations that should kill them. Probably, she admitted. Humans seem to find trouble wherever they go. Telly nodded seriously. But she'd keep walking again. Right? No matter what. Dr. Kath-Ira smiled and put a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. Yes, she said. She will always keep walking. That is what humans do. They fall down and they get back up. They break and they heal. They face impossible odds and they refuse to accept defeat. She looked out at the sunset one more time. That is the gift and the curse of being human. They feel all the pain. They carry all the fear. And they keep going anyway. Because somewhere out there, someone is counting on them. Telly looked up at the doctor with wide eyes. I want to be like that, she said. I want to be brave like the human. Dr. Kath-Ira smiled down at her. Then remember what she taught us. Pain and fear are just information. They tell you something is wrong, but they do not get to make your decisions. You make those. Your feelings give you data. You give the orders. The sun finished setting. Stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, on thousands of worlds, beings of every species were reading about Sarah Chun. They were learning what humans could do. They were beginning to understand. And on a frozen Mayan colony at the edge of known space, an engineer with 17 healed bones was getting back to work, because there was always work to do, and humans never stopped.